Hey everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Human Element. Today I'm speaking with TJ Ramsey, Senior Director of Threat Operations at Fortified Health Security. TJ, thanks for joining me today.
It's great to be here, man. Thank you.
Cool. Can we start off and just share a bit about your journey so far?
Yeah. So honestly, my journey was I have this habit of just kind of falling into different career fields. If you would have asked me that, what did I see myself doing 10 years from now, 11 years ago? IT was nowhere near it, right? So I started obviously at a young age, joining the military, fell into military intelligence, literally had no idea what I was getting into. My recruiters literally said, "We've never put anyone in that job from this office before, so you'll be the first." So read the job description, I'm like, hey, this actually sounds pretty cool. Get my Jack Ryan on a little bit and go forth and conquer, right? So ended up spending time as a defense contractor after my term of service. And I realized, like, hey, intelligence is really only going to be good in the federal industry, right? State government, law enforcement, federal law enforcement, et cetera. Kind of, it's a very cool job, but very limiting with regards to its career field outside of federal service or governmental service. Yeah, or so I thought. So I realized that I needed to make a career change, and I was at a prime position within my college at my, for my university studies, and I changed my degree field from intelligence operations to information system security. And as I've come down this path, I've learned that there's actually a lot of parallelism between intelligence operations and IT security. So I've been leveraging one to benefit my progress in my current industry.
Sounds like a nice confluence of events there.
Yeah, I've been fortunate, and I guess we could kind of segue this into a bit more of my background here at Fortified. When I finished my degree in 2015, I put my resume back out there. Had a young daughter who had just been born, and we already had a son. And Fortified gave me a chance. They brought me on as a vulnerability threat management analyst, so running NASA scans and the like for our clients. From there, progressed to pen testing, became a leader, established myself as a leader with the penetration testing effort, and was continued to be entrusted with more and more leadership responsibility, ultimately cultivating or culminating in my rise to senior director of threat operations. So literally every service that I have delivered, I am now in charge of. So it gives me a unique perspective, truthfully, though. It's really great to be able to talk to a healthcare executive who's looking for authoritative answers, but also wants to be able to trust that information is coming from someone who knows what they're talking about. In this case, I've literally done it all for Fortified. So
That's an awesome place to be. So life events tend to have big impact on our lives. You mentioned, the birth of your daughter, you've got a son. Can you tell me about some life events that have shaped your leadership style?
honestly, becoming a parent has been one of the biggest influences in my leadership style. I don't want to, wax too philosophically here, but one of my favorite quotes from a movie is after actually We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson and a couple other people, right? While he was playing the role of Lieutenant General Hal Moore, I don't know that there's an official quote that this actually was said, so I call it a movie quote. And he was asked, "What do you think you're better at, being a soldier or being a father?" And he said, "I pray that one makes me better at the other." Right. And as cliche as that might sound, as cheesy as that might sound, referencing pop culture, it's a true damn statement. Anyone who's really paying attention understands that it is truly, I hope that one makes me better at the other. And quite honestly, that has been my experience. Trying to be a good parent has led me to be a good leader in the professional world. And similarly, the skills and, habits that I build as a leader in a corporate America, I get to translate to my children, right? The way that you resolve conflict and help teach them ultimately the things I wish I knew at their age.
That's a nice quote. I like that. What would you say is the non-technical skill that has had the most impact on you?
People skills, being extroverted as best you can be. Yeah, stereotypes exist for a reason. Stereotypical IT person is generally introverted. They're very technical, very skillful. They're great at what they do, but they don't like people. Point blank and period. And truthfully, I share that sentiment, but I'm willing to step up to the plate when I need to and lead. So having those soft skills and being able to talk to people like they're people and also not being threatened by them, right? You get brought in to talk to a hospital CEO or a CIO about a recent pen test you did. You can't approach that conversation timid. So yeah, really having those soft skills is critically important.
All right, let's talk about a mistake that led you to personal growth.
All right, so this one is it's a story from when I was in the military, just the one that stands out the most. And once I tell the story, you'll understand why. So this was during my second deployment to Iraq. So this was during the big troop surge in 2006 to 2007. My infantry battalion. So at this point, I was an intel guy attached to an infantry battalion. My battalion was stationed north of Baghdad, Fob Warhorse, if I remember correctly. No, I'm sorry, it's Camp Taji. So we were at Warhorse, but Camp Taji is the one I'm specifically referring to. We had to operate in Baghdad proper, and this required us to set up a forward headquarters whenever we were doing those major operations. Okay. So I was selected, along with one of my colleagues in the intel shop, to go forward on this particular mission and work in the forward headquarters. The command sergeant major, my infantry battalion command sergeant major, the grand poobah of the enlisted forces of a battalion, came up to me. He's very stern, and he asked me for a weather effects report. And for those of that don't know, weather effects truly matter in military operations. And I gave my report, ending with, "Hey, night vision should be fine. Illumination is going to be at 90%. Good, good lunar illumination, starlight, etc." He goes, "Okay, well, what about rain?" I said, "Negative, Sergeant Major. It's not expected to rain for the next 7 days. Like, we should be fine." He then hauls off and just smacks me across the back of my head.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Only time I've ever been struck by a senior NCO. But looking back on it, I don't regret it. And he said, "Hey, what's it been doing for the last 10 days?" Was like, "Rainy, Sergeant Major." He goes, "Okay, 90% illumination, right? What does moonlight do on puddles in night vision? It glows, right? So you could wash out your night vision. Also, kind of important when you're in a military operation to be able to see." So the lesson behind, and he did eventually apologize to me, and we were cool with it. Like, yeah, my daddy used to whoop me too. It's all like, we get it. So he was like, "Listen," he goes, "You need to understand that the answers you give me are going to potentially risk human life. So I need you to understand that when given the opportunity, you need to exhaust all options before you give me an answer. Try to understand the totality of the situation before you give me an answer. When no one's life is on the line, you take all the time you need." Right? So,
it's nice that you got to learn that one back in the office, so to speak, in the headquarters, and not the hard way. But that's good.
right. And like I said, he apologized for it. Like, I'm a grown adult, man. Like, I look in situations like that. Hey, look, he's not wrong. Right? So what I told him could have failed to effectively notify and inform our troops, and somebody could have gotten hurt.
I mean, it sounds like that was the punctuate that was the exclamation point that brought it home.
Yeah, and it wasn't like a a close fist punch. He gave me a good swat across the back of my head. And yeah, hey, 20 years later, I remember the lesson, so it must have done something right.
Definitely landed. Yep. So, other than your sergeant major, any individuals who had major impact on your trajectory?
Oh, plenty, plenty. Mostly positive, fortunately. That was probably the only, like, story that I think people will cringe over. But no, I've had some great mentors. I've been fortunate to be surrounded by very smart people. Not just those that I report to, but even those that report to me, right? I pride myself in surrounding my circle with people who are smarter at things than I am. And, it started with a good, warrant officer that I had in the military, who kinda really taught me how to do the like, real intelligence work. Even my early superiors here at Fortified, they took a chance on me here. I would not say that I was an IT guy prior to Fortified. New computers, but not by trade an IT guy. So they brought me in, they taught me one valuable lesson is that the mark of a good cybersecurity professional is that he or she can ask good questions, and they will usually respond immediately to anything with a question, right? Their initial response is usually a question because you always have to assume the person reporting the issue to you is not giving you the full details. So even little things like that, how to actually do pen testing. Like, I cut my teeth in pen testing by actually doing pen testing. I've been a pen tester for about a year. before I even went to the offensive security course. And quite honestly, I even took that course with the intention of just getting the training. I gave the exam a shot, but that didn't work out the first time. And I had no impetus to go back. Like, there was no reason for me to go back and try again. But still, great training, great content. Really enjoyed that one. And yeah, just getting to work with my colleagues. But my bosses, even today, are absolutely phenomenal. Shout out to, Preston, my VP, William, my COO, Russell, the guy that he's our current CISO. I used to report to Russell directly, and he's the one who I built the IR program with here. So great connections with all of those gentlemen. And I think what I appreciate the most about them is that none of them are afraid to let me fail. So just like parenting, you have the habit of being overprotective, right? Helicopter parents. Like, there's whole terms for these situations now. The same thing applies in leadership, right? Every single one of my bosses could hover over my shoulder, check every cross T, every dotted I to make sure that it's perfect. But what am I really doing at that point other than just being I'm a chat GPTJ at that point. Like, and they're not afraid to just be like, all right, here's the guidance, go forth and execute. If you have questions, let us know, but go do it. And if it falls on its face, that it's my face that it falls upon. But they give me the grace to learn from it so that the mistake isn't made a second time. So simple lessons, but I find that the input that you get from a mentor, be it positive or negative, has an exponential return on the investment. So if you have a boss that is maybe not even all the time, but frequently mean to you or makes it unpleasant for you to work, it's going to feel like they do it every single day. Same thing the other direction, right? So you got to be positive and on time with that positivity and that positive reinforcement, but you've also got to be judicious with corrections and mentorship or coaching. That's how I would probably differentiate that. I would call it, mentorship when you're needing to be carried, and then coaching when it's a bit more of a passive relationship, if that makes sense.
That's fair. So speaking of having the opportunity to fail, what would be the most valuable lesson learned from some kind of failure incident, something like that?
Trusting people on paper. So naturally, when you build out a service line or a company, or hell, even if you have an existing service or operation that you're bringing somebody in on, that paperwork, like that resume, might look phenomenal. And I've worked with some people in varying capacities that on paper looks great. Because even if I work with a third party, right, it's not uncommon for an incident response team or even a pen test team to work with some third party. All right, if you're doing a purple team engagement, hell, if you're doing incident response, you can bet you're dealing with somebody else, not just your own team, right? You got lawyers, insurance, the whole nine yards. You see resumes of people like, hey, like, let's swap bios so we know who does what on which team. Not uncommon at all. You look at somebody on paper and like, oh wow, this person should be a rock star. They present themselves like a rock star, but when the rubber meets the road, they turn tail and run. Literally, it's incredibly disappointing. So I learned to really understand what it means to take a resume with a grain of salt, and especially people that have an alphabet after their name, because certifications don't imply experience and professionalism.
So what's the most rewarding aspect of your job?
Honestly, it has everything to do with the fact that we service healthcare. Every single one of us needs healthcare, one way or another, right? You're a patient, I'm somebody's patient, my kids are somebody's patient, etc. Cybersecurity is patient safety. Point blank and period. Can't convince me otherwise. So I find it very rewarding, as does the rest of my team. And I think I speak for all of us here at Fortified when I say this. The outcome of the mission that we are executing is helping to protect patients and their data, but the patients themselves are also being protected. It's an incredibly rewarding opportunity. It truly is.
It's important work. How has your approach to building teams and building trust within those teams evolved over time?
Rather than building the team for the sake of building the team, build the outcome and then find the team members that best work to help you reach that outcome. For example, I might want to build the absolute best pen testing singular pen test team in the world. I just want 3 people that can be like this Delta Force element that goes through and does all the coolest, hardest pen testing stuff on the planet, right? I might not just need a pen tester for that. I can sling a dead cat and find a pen tester. But to build that particular team, to have that outcome I'm looking for, maybe I need a really great pen tester along with a developer and an infrastructure person. I need someone that knows how to attack, someone that can help with the coding, and someone that understands how systems work and intermingle with each other. You have to do the same thing when you're building the team. If you don't understand what your outcome is going to be, then the team that you build will not, it's destined to fail. It's going to Hindenburg itself. Or you're not going to get the outcome you want, which from a business perspective, that's a Hindenburg on the other side. It's the same side of the, or different side of the same coin. Your projected outcome will fail. What comes, I don't even want to say it comes second. It's more like a 1A to what I just was speaking to, but that is being observant of toxic traits. I can work with anyone who lacks the technical skill. That can be taught. Fun fact, 99% of the stuff that every one of us knows in the IT field is freely available on the internet. It just is, right? If not all of it. So I can work with anybody of any technical skill level and get them to where I need them to be, or my team can. But I need to look for a couple of key skills. How well do they work in a small team environment? They're in a single IT department in the world that is considered large. Ain't nobody got enough IT people. It's just, it's what it is. But like, hey, it's a small team. Even large IT departments, right? I've worked with hospitals that have 200 IT people, but they're all broken down into subsets. Maybe 200 people in total, but when it's a 10 hospital system, and then you've got server team, workstation team, like you're still breaking it down into individual elements that are really small. So how well do you work in those teams or in those environments? But more importantly, are you good at being a self-managed individual contributor, right? Can you be told what needs to be done and then go forth and execute without having to be babysat? Now, it's not to say that you will be an island. That's not to say that. The point being is that in order to avoid toxicity, you cannot have a situation that leads to, all of us are all too familiar with it in high school with group projects. 10% of the people doing 90% of the work. There's no room for that here in cybersecurity. I don't care where you work. If you're going to be one of those people that does the 10%, everyone's got to be putting in their fair share, and you have to be willing to go find the work to be done, because it might not be there. Somebody might not be there to tell you what needs to be done. So having those two like critical outcomes, so knowing the outcome of what it is you're trying to accomplish, and as far as building a cohesive team that is successful in helping you to achieve that, need to have the right skills, not just technically, but from a personality perspective, the way that they intermingle and work with others.
How do you screen for that personality piece?
Yeah, so you have to get away from the technical questions. So the way that we've done it here, and every business unit within Fortified has subtle different practices in the way that they hire, right? Different leaders, different focus areas, different skill sets in their interview process. So the way that I've structured it is the initial interview will be with my individual service line managers, whoever it might be. They might even do a group setting. It's entirely up to them. But if we're hiring a pen tester, you're going to go talk to Joe, my pen test manager, first and foremost, and he's going to check your technical acumen, right? Can you do the job? Do you understand pen testing, cybersecurity, blah, blah, blah. If they make it through that, they go to a second interview which is usually a demonstration of skills. If we're sticking with the pen testing example, we'll assign you some sandbox to go do. You pen test it and then present it to us in a report format of your choosing, so that we can demonstrate how you present to people, right? There's quite a few people that don't even make it to that. Speaking back to my introverted, stereotypical IT guy persona. Once you get through that, then you come to me, and I'm going to check your heart. I'm not going to ask you questions about shared drives or, RDP sessions open to the outside world. I'm going to ask you about what it takes to be a successful manager for you. What do you need to be successful? What is the best way that you like to be managed? Tell me about a leader or a colleague that frustrated you, and why did they frustrate you? Alternatively, tell me about a leader that inspired you, and a colleague or a coworker that similarly inspired you. You start asking questions along the lines of, ironically enough, the human element. You start to really find out what makes people tick. And generally, those types of personality traits can come out in a conversation like that.
Nice. So we're in rather technical fields. How do you balance maintaining the technical skills and expertise with the leadership skills required to be effective in what you're doing?
Yeah, so what I've learned is that anybody that feels like they're suffering in one area or another doesn't have a knowledge or a skill problem. It's often a priority problem. If you prioritize, and I'm a big fan of time blocking. It's been a huge tool for me, especially because, I oversee 3 individual service lines with 5 different individual services between them. Time blocking is kind of critical, but making sure that you're taking the time. So, like, for every, you know, technical document or, media I might consume to impress my or enhance my technical skills, I have to be judicious in understanding that I need to also be consuming leadership material. I also understand that in my particular position, I probably need to be more of a 60-40 split on the leadership to technical, maybe even a 70-30. But it comes in waves, right? Like, I want to go and achieve my CISSP, which I still haven't done yet. And I do need to obviously study the technical stuff that comes along with that. While it is a managerial type test, there's still technical acumen that's required for that. But at the same time, I also am studying things like adult learning theory and the Socratic method of questions. I'm also reading, his name is escaping me right now, but he was the founder of GroupSense. He recently released a book on cyber threat intelligence that's quite good. And it is obviously, it flexes on more of the technical stuff, but also covers a lot of the leadership considerations as well, which I find mutually beneficial on both sides of that coin. But I would also argue that's a technical resource. So you have to prioritize what you're trying to consume. And it's really what it comes down to. Just learn to prioritize. And yeah, guess what? Being a leader doesn't mean that your job gets easier. It means you keep the same work that you had before. You just got to do more. You just got to do more at a higher level. So yeah, if that means dedicating some time after hours and weekends to enhance those skills, then guess what? That's what you got to do.
Yep. How do you define success in your teams?
If they show up and are happy to be here,
Okay.
it's that simple. Are they happy to come to work every day and do their job? If you are not checking that box, you are failing as a leader, because I don't care how good they are. If they don't want to come to work, they're going to be a substandard performer. Now, that doesn't mean you have to kowtow to every single person's own sensitivities, but it also means you need to be in tune and paying attention to potential sensitivity so that you can make sure that you're meeting people where they are. It's all relationship management.
Absolutely. Is there a daily routine that you found especially helpful?
A particular routine, I guess, to an extent, it's really about clearing the shaft from the wheat. Consistency also matters, though. No routine is worth it if it's inconsistent. So I wake up, get my kids up, take my son to school, and get back to work, right? I always show up 30 minutes before my expected time, right? We typically run, 8 to 5 schedule, common corporate America hours. At the latest, I am at my desk by 7:30, preferably before so many other people get online, right? So I can have undisturbed focus time to go through any emails that I maybe didn't catch yesterday, any new emails that came through marked for follow up, and then any Teams messages that might have come through. Maybe double check my notes. I do keep a running list of tasks and to dos that I have, like priority items and radar items. Review those. Really, just kind of getting I'm just now getting my day set up. Right, and I used to do it honestly, and it's a recent change. I used to do all that stuff in the evening. Like, once everybody was punched out, I had my dinner, grab my laptop, sit up there, hang out with the wife, and, plug away some emails and stuff, right? What I found is that was counterproductive, at least for me, because any stresses or strains or fatigue that I might be feeling from that day continue to carry with me. So I want an opportunity to sleep on those and come back at my inbox with a fresh mindset. So sit down, get everything prepped, clear the air for the day. So I'm starting with a clean slate. Go through my day, and then at the last hour of the day, I have dedicated as blocked off. No meetings, no there's obviously exceptions, but I strive for no meetings, effectively repeating the same thing. Throughout the day, did I receive any messages, emails, otherwise that I need to address right now, or mark for follow up the next day? Respond to those that need to be responded to, whatever have you. The bottom line is I don't get up from my desk at the end of the day without every Teams message being read, and either documented for follow-up or whatever, and I don't leave unread emails in my inbox or anywhere in my email before I walk away from my desk. That's effectively the routine. Obviously, all the interoperational stuff, right? There's certain people that I check with every single day. I just so happen to be at our headquarters in Brentwood, Tennessee today. And my common routine when I come here, though my hours kind of shift because of traffic or whatever have you, same thing applies, emails, Teams, all that stuff. Before I walk out of here, I will literally do a lap with every single person in this office and ask them deliberately and directly, hey, I'm about to punch out. Is there anything that you need from me? That's simple, right? So yeah, it's also keep in mind that that operational benefit also benefits the leadership style, benefits the relationship management with my colleagues, coworkers, and friends, right? So little habits that have multiple outcomes.
Sounds pretty good. So if you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, out of focus, how do you get back on track?
I try to do anything and everything that I can to not be behind a computer or or a cell phone. All of my habit, like when I told you at like during the opening of this, that if you would have asked me where I'd be in 10 years, 11 years ago, I'd have laughed you out of the room. And no, I'm the most knuckle dragging IT guy you'll ever meet. When I'm not behind my computer, I'm usually in my garage. I'm a hobbyist knife maker. I'm an active outdoorsman. I'm a hunter. I love fishing. I take my boat out, spending time with my wife and kids, camping, working on vehicles. Like literally, to all intents and purposes, I am as blue collar as they get. So that's how I like to live. I keep it pretty simple. You know, we've got our toys and stuff that we all like to have, and yeah, that's how I clear my head. And I do a lot of jujitsu. So a little bit of controlled violence with friends in your pajamas is usually a good stress reliever.
Is there a skill or behavior that you do as a leader that you would like to see more leaders doing?
So it's difficult for me to say because, and this is going to sound cheesy as hell, but really don't have too many examples of bad leaders here at Fortified.
That's a good problem to have.
That being said, though, obviously I've got other experiences in life. And I would say, I think probably one of my favorite things to do is I have a dedicated one-on-one meeting with every member of my team at least once a month. I meet with my managers, my direct reports every single week, but I have a deliberate touch point with every member of my team at least once a month. Now, all leaders talk about having that open door policy, and same holds true for those of us here at Fortified. Anybody in the company needs to talk to me. They know how to find me. I mean, hell, I even give all of my clients my my personal cell phone. I'm available. And I always tell my team members that while I have business hours, I am always available to you guys. If you need something, if you need to call me at 1 o'clock in the morning, call me. Having that one-on-one connection with your people, there was a period of time where that was considered taboo. And there was also a period of time where I think the pendulum swung too far in the opposite direction, where everybody wanted to be everybody's friend. And the in between is usually the right answer. So you can be a good leader and you can still hold people accountable, but you can also still have a personal connection with the members of your team, right? Just because I call our newest guy on the or gal on the team who's been here for a week, they're not in a leadership position. Like they're still figuring things out. Just talking to them, be like, "Hey, how are things going here? Is there anything I can clear up for you?" I think the best way I could summarize this, I wish that other leaders would recognize that oftentimes you work more for the people under you than they work for you. I think that's the best way that I can simplify that.
At the end of the day, that's the way it works. So how do you approach difficult decisions?
Harkening back to that hard lesson learned on my second deployment, I want to make sure that we understand the totality of the situation, right? As best we can. I'm also going to say one of my other lessons that I've learned in the military was sometimes an 80% answer on time is better than a 100% answer 2 hours late. Right. So to go along with your question, I'm going to assume that we do not have the availability of being 2 hours late. So I do need to make sure that if I'm going to make a decision on 80%, that I actually have 80%. So making sure you have all the facts, again, asking good questions, and then make a decision and own it. Don't be afraid to be wrong. If I have a limited time and I have to make a rash decision on a critical scenario, the worst thing you can do is nothing. right? So you have to do something. You can't be afraid to be wrong.
Not making a decision is a decision.
Yeah, it is what it is, right? So yeah, it's just making sure you got as much information as you can and not being afraid to act. Don't second guess yourself. I mean, hell, every one of us is a professional in the IT industry. Every one of us has taken, proctored exams. It's one of the number one things they tell you. Trust your gut. If your immediate answer is you think it's C, don't change it because there's a higher probability that you'll second guess yourself into the wrong answer.
What is your go-to advice for new people in the field?
Find someone who you can reasonably assume knows what they're doing and follow them. It's the same rule I have at a craps table. You find that you don't need to know how to play craps. You just need to find the person with the biggest stack of chips and do exactly what they do. Right? Understand that you don't know anything, and that's okay. You're brand new in this field. I'm really glad that this question was presented because I actually get hit a lot with people who are like, "Hey, man, I'm looking to get into the industry. I don't know what to do. Maybe I'm in college. Maybe I'm already a professional in another career. Maybe I'm a college kid. Maybe I'm a high school about to graduate high school." I get all of them, and I love helping them out. I really do. But yeah, grab yourself a couple certifications, right? If you're going into security, security plus GSEC, things like that are a good place to get started. But yeah, understand that you don't know what you don't know. Understand that you don't know everything, but don't be afraid to ask questions. That is beneficial in two different ways. Number one, it's going to give you an opportunity to learn more and really learn how IT is applied in the field. And number two, it's going to give you an idea of which people on the team are going to actually be beneficial to work with. If I go ask Johnny, the network architecture guy, "Hey man, what exactly does a network architecture guy do?" And he gives me some snotty, crappy, like disgruntled response about, "Okay, well, I know I'm not going to go talk to Johnny anymore." Right? So it is mutually beneficial to flesh those things out. That's probably the best advice I can give. That's what I did. Be curious. You're never going to stop learning in this field. You're never going to stop learning.
Or if you do, it's time to find another field. But
Yeah, exactly. Been doing this solidly for a long time, and you're always learning new stuff. So embrace it. Ask the questions. Don't be afraid to keep learning.
are there any resources that you tend to recommend? Books, podcasts, websites, blogs, whatever. Conferences?
So conferences are good. Honestly, if you're not currently in a particular industry vertical, let's just say you're a general practitioner in the cybersecurity world. Hell, maybe you're a help desk person, maybe you're a SOC analyst, whatever. Early in your career, I highly recommend things like Black Hat DEF CON. One, because they have educational like courses that go on. There's actual accredited speeches that are taking place and true learning labs and things like that. You get to see a whole bunch of new technology, both real and vaporware that may be coming out. But more importantly, you also get to talk to other people in the industry, right? I love to be able to send my pen testers at least to DEF CON or Black Hat, not just as a reward for like, "Hey, you were the top performer this year. You did great work, or you were the most improved, whatever. Here, we'll cover your costs to go to DEF CON Black Hat," right? With the sole purpose, like, I don't need you to do anything else other than have a good time, be safe, but intermingle with other pen testers and find out what they're doing. You can share there's nothing secret in pen testing. So as long as you're not disclosing client specifics and particulars, you are absolutely free to talk shop with other pen testers. I encourage you to. So those conferences are really good resources. And with respect to conferences, I'm sure there are plenty others out there, but those are the two that stick out most in my mind as being the most beneficial to everyone, regardless of industry vertical. Obviously, if you're in healthcare, it's important to also, if you can, attend healthcare conferences that are more centered around, call it clinical operations, right? If there's like a big consortium or conference of EMR manufacturers or, you know, developers, if you can get a chance to go to something like that, you should. One of the things that I think that we as IT people fail to do most often is gain an appreciation for what the operations are that we are supporting. So when everyone in the room is dealing with a ransomware case in a hospital, and you got IT guys that are talking about, well, we need to bring up this domain controller, this server, this, that, and the other. And the chief medical officers going, well, what about the EMR guys? So now you've got this point of contention because nobody sees the value of what the other person is trying to prioritize. And similarly, like to be fair, like the person asking about that, the CMO in that example may not understand that that server and domain controller were necessary to get the EMR working, right? So it's kind of a give and take, right? But resources, honestly, the internet's a huge help. Well, I meant what I said. 99% of what we know is on the internet. Some of the best pen testing certifications, some of the best cybersecurity certifications require individual study outside of the material that is provided for you for that exam. So you got to get good at researching stuff. Start with, again, asking questions. Go to Google, go to ChatGPT, whatever have you. Start with one question, but keep pulling the string. Hey, how do computers talk to each other? Turns into what is an IP address? Turns into what is CID4 notation or CIDR notation? What is now binary notation? Like you keep, okay, why do we have a binary system? Like you can literally go down any rabbit hole that you want and get really smart. It's not like I don't like the term rabbit hole when we're talking about this, but for lack of a better word, it's sufficient because a rabbit hole implies that you're going to potentially not find any value at the bottom of that hole, right? That rabbit may not be in that hole that you're hunting, right? But in this particular construct, with regards to learning IT stuff and even being a good leader, start asking questions. The little bit that rabbit hole you go down is going to be beneficial to you the entire step of the way. Even if you don't need to understand the binary of an IP address, it at least gives you a foundational understanding as to the origins of how we got to where we are.
So how do you approach mentoring?
I want to ask people where they want to be. If I just mentor you for the sake of mentoring you, it might be you're going to minimize the value of that mentorship. Matter of fact, I've got a young man on my team, individual contributor, senior member of the team, but not currently in call it a management position. Has expressed to me that he would like to either become a virtual CISO or a CISO type role. He's also expressed to me that he wants to follow a business leadership track. So now following a management track. There's a similar outcome or a similar path to mentoring down each of those, but the subtle differences matter between those two. So you have to understand where he or she is trying to get to and then mentor them along that path. And if you don't know how to mentor along that path, a good mentor will know how to find another good mentor. So that's how we approach it, right? You find out what you're trying to accomplish. And it's not always about career advancement either, right? Sometimes maybe it's about, hey, I just want to change roles. Similarly, I've got currently a vulnerability analyst who's wanting to follow a similar track to me and wants to become a penetration tester, right? I'm going to mentor him in a completely different way than I'm going to mentor the other gentleman that wants to go up a management track, right? But none of that would have happened if I didn't have that open conversation with him in a private setting, which again, just harkening back to the value of a one-on-one meeting and having those direct connections with people, you get to find that stuff out. It gives you an opportunity to ask those questions.
Absolutely. So working our way up the ladder, we all face a lot of different transitions as we take the different steps. Which step would you say was the hardest for you?
The step from manager to director. So just before I became a senior director, that step from manager to director was really tough. That was really tough. Because as a manager, there's always this understanding that a manager is going to be what we call a player coach, right? They're going to manage a service line. They're going to oversee administratively the people that are assigned to that team, but they're also going to be doing VTM, pen testing, incident response. When you go from manager or senior manager to director, that really starts to fall off the actual player part. You're more coach than player significantly. So it's the reason that step was difficult is because you have to let go of so much of the operational vine. I now have to trust the people that I have brought up underneath me when I was a manager and once I was a director. I have to completely entrust them to go be successful with the things that I used to do personally, where I had a better opportunity to ensure their success or meeting my expectations. So that's a really tough thing for a lot of people to grasp. Now, when you're a transplant, like if I was as a senior director, if I were to go be a senior director somewhere else, that wouldn't be as tough So at least with respect to my personal experiences, that step was probably the most difficult and why.
Do you see any trends developing in the space that are going to require that we adjust how we lead the team?
Yes, it's also not even just from a leadership perspective, but even from just a human resources perspective. And it's going to make perfect sense when I say AI. So not just in the form of ChatGPT. That is a huge part of it, but that's not the only thing I'm talking about, or similar services, right? There are tools, cybersecurity tools, like we've more AI is being garnered into CrowdStrike, Sentinel-1, Tenable products, pen testing products, all this. It's everywhere you look now. So just like if we're and honestly, I see this as kind of a modern industrial revolution, if you will. We saw similarly in the automotive industry, 30, 40 years ago when they started introducing these robots to the assembly line. Everyone was worried, oh, my job's at risk. The people who were learning to use the robot arms, their job was fine, right? So all that to say is we're seeing a similar, call it a threat to the jobs in the cybersecurity and IT industry as a whole. So you need to be comfortable with that change because it's going to happen. You cannot stop it. So it would behoove you to at least be knowledgeable and understanding of some of the core principles of AI implementation and employment in the execution of IT operations, both security and standard operations. So that's a growing one. From a hiring perspective, from a human resources perspective, it makes it more challenging because it's easier. It's going to make it easier for people to come off and represent themselves at a greater perspective than what they truly are. It's almost like it's an enabler for a physical manifestation of the Dunning-Kruger effect. So not only do I believe that my skills are higher than my actual skills are, now I can project onto you and be more successful at doing so, leaving you to believe that my skills are higher than they really are because I used AI to buffer my resume or help me prep for this or whatever.
And the AI is telling me that I have those skills.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that's all the time we've got for today. Before we wrap it up, if people want to follow along with your work, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah. So they can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm listed as Tim Ramsey on LinkedIn. You'll notice with the ginger beard and the bald head, I stand out. You can obviously engage me directly, tramsey at fortifiedhealthsecurity.com if you want to reach out via email and have another conversation with me or ask some questions. Also, if you'd like to see some of the content that my team produces, you can reach out to connect at fortifiedhealthsecurity.com to get in touch with our marketing team, and they can add you to different bulletins and other white papers that we produce or webinars or anything like that, which I frequently participate in. You can get on those mailing distros and check out our website.
That's awesome. TJ, thanks for the time. It's been a great conversation and look forward to meeting you somewhere out in the field someday.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.